Hey everyone. So I frequently have been asked how I make these videos, and so in this video I'm going to show you how I make these videos. Yeah. Anyway, and as a quick little side note, as you may notice, a little more contrast in this, a little more shadow on my face. It's because I'm actually shooting this at night instead of normally during the day, and well, I didn't feel like setting up extra lights just to be my fill. The light that is normally my fill light is now my key light. But I wanted to get this out actually more to talk about, I think, how I've done these videos in the past. So we'll rewind back to my earlier videos on this channel about a year ago. We'll say the way that I was doing those videos, if you haven't watched them, basically, or if you have even, basically the way that I would do them is I would sit on the sofa or on my at my dining table, and camera in front, collapsible reflector on one side, letting the natural light be my key, and that was basically it, how I kind of generally set up. So some issues that I was encountering, right? My setup originally was that I had an a Sony a7R III on my tripod, and I would have that basically no lighting, right? Just natural lighting, and I would use my lavalier microphone with an extension cable. Right, actually, my first couple of videos, I didn't have the extension. I just recorded audio separate to my phone using the voice recorder on it. But then I got the extension cable. So 3.5 millimeter cable, extension, a TRRS to TRS adapter in order to use the Rode Smart Lav with my A7R III. And that worked audio-wise. I did notice that it would rustle quite a bit, especially with a lot of movement, and it was kind of limiting in certain areas. So I felt I had to get this microphone, which is the Rode NTUSB, but I'll get to that. So with the camera, I would have it set up, point it generally how I think that it should be set, framed and everything. Hit record, jump in, sit down, blah, 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 move forward and back, check, and then get up, hit stop on the camera, review the footage, make sure I'm framed properly, that I'm in focus, etc. The first couple, I think there was a couple of times where I left it on autofocus, and well, I think it was 3 times I had it on autofocus, and it would go out of focus and then just stay out of focus for the whole video. And so I'd be like, okay, well, I guess I'm not posting that one. So I would lose so many videos that way. And it was really, really out of focus sometimes. Yeah, pretty bad. So I started doing manual focus and everything, but I would have to keep going back and forward, hit record, get in position, do this, my normal movement range, go back, check the headroom. I'm not, even now I'm a little off on headroom, but this was a little bit more impromptu, I think, with my setup. Maybe, who knows? But anyway, so it was a lot of back and forward, and it's actually very time consuming. And I was recording to the camera, and then I would take the SD card out, and I would have to transfer the files to my MacBook Pro, and then I would transfer them from my MacBook Pro to my iPad Pro. The reason for this was I was actually, this is around the time that I was switching from editing Premiere Pro on my MacBook, switching from that to LumaFusion on my iPad. And the reason why I did that is I actually did 4 or 5 projects on the iPad and was amazed with how much faster it was. And part of it is that the iPad Pro, which is a 2017 one, is just faster at encoding and rendering video than a base model 13-inch 2015 MacBook Pro. But the other part of that equation is LumaFusion is just faster and, for me, operates smoother than Adobe CC has for quite a while. So that was kind of my reasoning for that. But it was yet another slowdown in the chain. And the reason why I'd have to transfer the files to the MacBook before the iPad was because the iPad was not compatible with XAVC files, and that, you know, I think now it is, but then it definitely wasn't. And if you try to transfer from the camera to the iPad, sometimes it would work, sometimes it wouldn't. It was very, very fickle, too fickle for me. So I just gave up with the whole like back and forward. Like, I'm not even going to attempt it. I'm just going to transfer it here and then use that as a backup and then transfer it to my iPad and edit it there. And then the edited file I was uploading directly to YouTube from my iPad. And then I would transfer that file to my MacBook Pro, and that would be my, it would go to my storage drive. And I did that for a while, but that process was just getting on me, and I really felt like I had to streamline that process, to streamline as much as possible. I mean, I continue to try to make changes to make this easier for me, but also to make it a more capable setup. And this is not complete. There's more changes that I plan on making. I just have to do some testing, and there's more, bits of equipment and all that that I'll be moving in and out of what I've got. But this, I feel, is a pretty good improvement. So the first step that I did was I ran into a couple of videos where, as happens, the natural lighting was going in and out, right? There was clouds going between the sun and my apartment. And this was, I think it was during the winter. So during that time, the sun is lower in the sky, and it was much, harder light coming in here, and then a cloud would come in and it would soften and it would darken substantially. And this, I think a couple of videos I was okay with the level that it was doing it, but a couple of them I scrapped because it just went super dark. Like, the general light levels are about, this shadow level right here, and that I just couldn't do. So I stopped being lazy and I started lighting it. I've had the lights the whole time, but at first I was using a 1x1 LED, and I was just kind of bouncing it into my ceiling wall area. I have one, like, I guess a quarter of a wall or whatever, but maybe not less than that, over the windows, and then the ceiling is white. But these walls are dark blue, the blue that you see in those videos. It's kind of like a blue screen. So I didn't have a whole lot of options there. I did bounce into the collapsible reflector a couple of times, but that lost the fill light. So I would pull out my Road Rags kit, set up another stand with those, and I just felt like I was starting to get a little too, it was getting a little too busy. And again, it's not laziness, it's more of how can I really streamline this process, right? Like I want generally like relatively soft lighting, or soft-ish lighting, and so I basically went and got this light, which is an Astera AX1 a Pixeltube. So it's a 1 meter length LED tube, and it's RGBW, so I can make it any color I want, like red or green or, well, basically anything. I can turn on like a fire effect, but I'm just leaving it for these videos. I just leave it on daylight balance, and that I've been using as my fill in case the natural light dims too much. Then at least there's what I would consider usable video footage. And then as far as the camera goes, how I got around the codec issue, compatibility, etc., was I had bought a Panasonic G9, and basically, especially for my purposes, it has totally surpassed expectations. And the fact that I can, it's got the swivel out screen, and there's a bunch of reasons why like what makes that better for this type of video, and why I switched to it. And those files work totally fine on the iPad. I can record on the camera, then transfer those, with SD card adapter into the iPad, edit no problem. But in typical me fashion, that's still not good enough. I have to continue, right? I was still having the problem of framing and in focus, right? Even though it's a flip out screen and I can get framing pretty good, focus is still an issue. And so it was either go back and forward and check focus that way, switch to the autofocus, which also has had a few issues with the G9, and I kind of was like, yeah, okay, still don't want to do autofocus for these videos. What can I do, right? I can set up a stand-in that is, so I can focus on, and I did that a few times. But what I ultimately settled on was actually plugging it into like a monitor or a TV. And I've got a TV here, and so it was kind of like, I would look past the camera and I would see myself, and I could see if it was in focus. And that worked for a little bit, but I thought, at some point I might want to live stream for this channel, and I do intend to do some live streaming in the near future. But basically, I had to then get over that hurdle, right? And so I got OBS. I actually got a new laptop, so I'm like circumventing all the problems that I had previously. I got a new MacBook Pro, and I have OBS on that, and I have the camera plugged into my computer through this video input, a video capture device, basically, and it's USB-C and HDMI into it. So I use that, and then I use the Rode NTUSB microphone. So the USB meaning it plugs into the USB port on my computer. So I've got a little adapter to give me USB. It also gives me HDMI out and Ethernet for in the future when I do the live streaming. That way I can have a monitor set up to monitor, to see the comments in the chat, and then use the Ethernet to get a little more, reliability out of those speeds. And that's basically it. So that's kind of the setup now. Is I have the G9 HDMI into the video capture card going into my computer, and that's how I get the video feed, and then NTUSB here. I get the light, the Pixeltube that I'm using. I still use it normally as a fill, but today is a key. So today I've got the collapsible reflector just kind of sitting here doing basically nothing. No, it's not entirely true. I think when I pull that away, it'll be like totally black, like zero detail. And then two other changes that I've done is back behind me, I have a green screen. This is a 40-inch by 60-inch. It's just horizontal, and that's on a light stand with a reflector holder or a reflector clip. And right behind me down here is my Aputure 20C, the LS 20C. So it's a bicolor focusable LED light, and I think it's 25 watts, something like that. Pretty low power, but bright enough that it's able to light up the green screen, make it green. So then in OBS, I just chroma key out the green, and then I put this video looping as another layer in the streaming software, kind of underneath the video from the camera. And that video I shot one night, I guess one evening, because it's not totally pitch black with the sky, but and that I put on a loop, and I have it reversed, and tried to make it seamless. And then this. So the other part is, even though I've got the video feed going to my computer, it's kind of far away because it's got to be where my camera is, and currently I have the lens set at 50 millimeter, which is like 100 millimeter for a full frame camera, right? The equivalent. And so it's a decent distance away from me, and my computer is right next to it because that is also where there's decent power without running extension cables. And I wanted to keep the HDMI cable between the camera and the computer short, because if you go too long with the cable, you start losing signal quality, and you start coming up with, at least I was, coming up with more delay to the video. So keep those cables short if you can. But that meant that my computer screen is far away, and sure, that screen at that distance is larger than the little flip out screen on the camera would be at the previous setup. But what I have done is I've got it going to my iPad here wirelessly. This is AstroPad. The app is AstroPad. Now, is my understanding that the new Mac OS and iOS are going to have this kind of a feature built in, so I won't necessarily be needing AstroPad anymore, but we'll see. Because one thing that I like about this is that I can go like this and kind of hit this right here, which allows me to pinch and zoom the area of the screen that I'm viewing on my iPad. And I can actually, you know, I can touch, you can't really see that, but I can touch, and you know, it's clicking on the screen. And the reason why I was wanting to do this was I was going to zoom and pinch, or pinch and zoom, whatever, down to this area where it says scenes, and just kind of tap between the different camera setups. So if when I'm live streaming, if I have two camera setup, or I have camera and computer feed, whatever it is, that I'll be able to still be far away from my computer and switch, you know, live switch while streaming or anything like that. I also am using that to hit the start recording, stop recording button on this. But yeah, so this allows me to check focus, allows me to kind of do all that stuff. Except today with the framing, because it's being a little bit lazy. It's not quite to my liking. That is how I decided to do this setup, and how convoluted it has gotten, where it started, where it is now, what I kind of plan on doing in the future. I actually plan on replacing this light in the setup with another light that is RGBW and a little bit brighter, and actually a little bit smaller than this, hitting the microphone, and that will help a little bit. Gonna have to go with getting another camera, another tripod. Gonna keep them the same, so I have two of the same. And I don't know, if you have any questions about this setup, previous setups, leave those in the comments down below. And I think that's where I'm going to end this video. So please like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching, everyone.